They said that she will be back. She started saying that I should tell him the truth, though, because before he died, that he would tell me the story. And I said, okay.
Your father told you that?
Yes, he told me that yesterday. Before he died, he would tell me what happened.
On Monday, February 17, 2025, the night breeze was cool, the air calm, but inside Caleb's household, a storm was brewing. One that would leave behind a scene too horrific to imagine. In that evening, Mr. Caleb sat with his son. His mind was restless, his heart heavy, with a feeling he couldn't just shake off. His wife, Mrs. Taiwo, was nowhere to be found. So Mr. Caleb asked his son, "Where is your mother?" His voice calm but firm. The boy, who was innocent and clueless about the war raging in his father's heart, answered, "She went out, she will be back soon." But something about the boy's response did not sit well with Mr. Caleb. His instincts, sharpened by years as a police officer, whispered that something was wrong somewhere. "Tell me the truth, my son. Where exactly did she go?" He asked again, while studying his son's face and body language. Again, the boy repeated, "She went out. She will be back soon." The boy might have been young, but he was not blind. He had seen the tension, the cold silence, the stolen glances between his parents. And so, with a child's innocence, he asked, "Daddy, are you and mommy fighting? Is there something wrong?" A deep sigh escaped Mr. Caleb's lips. He looked at his son. His young eyes were filled with curiosity, but he knew he could not bother him with the truth. So he forced a small smile and said, "No, my son, we are not fighting. I am not fighting with your mom. We are just playing." But as if driven by fate, he made a promise that day that sent chills down the spine. "My son, before I die," he told his son, "I will tell you everything. Everything that has been going on between me and your mother." If only he knew that tomorrow would never come for him. If only he knew he would not live long enough to see his son come of age. Later that evening, when Mrs. Taiwo finally returned home, she walked like a woman who had no worries in this world. She entered the kitchen, prepared a lovely meal for the family, and served her husband. A simple act, but behind that plate of food lay an intention darker than the night itself. After dinner, she left again, saying she was going to check on her sick mother. But Mr. Caleb did not eat the food on the table. He just sat down there, staring at nothing, lost in thoughts only he could understand. His son, however, was troubled. Why was mommy moving up and down like this? Did she leave home early because she had quarreled with daddy? Why? Still, he sat beside his father, waiting for her to return. By the time she finally came back, it was already 9 p.m. It was already dinner time. This time, they all sat together, eating as a family. Mr. and Mrs. Leramo even cracked jokes, laughing, chatting like nothing was wrong. To an outsider, they looked like a happy couple, but only time stood between their laughter and the tragedy that was about to unfold. At some point, Mr. Caleb stood up and went inside the room. He picked up his Bible, bowed his head, and prayed. Was he praying for peace? Was he praying for wisdom? Or did he already sense that death was hovering over him like a shadow? No one knew his prayer point. But when he was done, he returned to the living room. Just as his son asked, "Mommy, come and sleep in our room." Mr. Caleb's reaction was instant no. "No, leave your mom. She sleeps in my room today." His voice was firm. There was no room for argument. "Go to bed, my son." The boy obeyed his father. He looked at his parents one last time and said, "Good night," and walked away. If only he had known. If only time had whispered in his ears that this was the last time he would ever see his parents alive. Maybe he would have stayed a little longer. Maybe he would have begged them to settle whatever was wrong. But time does not grant us such warnings. And so, with a heart full of innocence, he and his siblings went to bed. By morning, their world would have been unrecognizable. Before the sun could rise that morning, the house was filled with screams and shouts. Then the chilling sound of cutlass being heard. The boy, who usually wake up very early in the morning to go to school, woke up. His heart raced faster than a power bike. Something was wrong. He quickly woke his sister. Together, they ran towards their parents' bedroom. The door was locked. They banged the door, shouting, "Mommy, Daddy, open the door." but there was silence. The sister was very desperate. She grabbed a stool and tried to break down the door, but the wood was too strong for her. Panic took over, but the boy did the only thing he could do. He ran to their neighbor's house, screaming for help. When the neighbors arrived, they did not waste time. With all their strength, they forced the bedroom door open, and what they saw, no one should ever have to see. Mr. Caleb Leramo, a strong and fearless police officer, was lying motionless in a pool of his own blood. But it wasn't just his death that shocked them. His manhood had been cut off. Nearby, Mrs. Taiwo was also on the floor, her body barely clinging to life. Blood poured from her head, her face a mask of agony. The room, the bed, the walls, everywhere was painted with the evidence of a brutal struggle. So the neighbors did the only thing they could do. They rushed the couple to the hospital. But the damage had already been done. The doctors took one look at them and shook their heads. They were both gone. As the police investigated further, a chilling truth came to light. Mrs. Taiwo had drugged the food she served her husband that night, planning to take her revenge while he was weak. And when the drug took effect, she made a move, using a sharp object to cut off his manhood. But Mr. Caleb was no ordinary man. Even in his weakened state, his survival instincts kicked in. With every ounce of strength left in him, just like Samson in the Bible, he grabbed the cutlass and fought back. And in that violent exchange, both of them met their end. 4 innocent children, orphans, in one night. A home that was once echoed with laughter, now filled with silence. And a boy too young to understand, yet old enough to never forget. The question is, what really happened between this couple? You see, Mr. Caleb was a known, fearless, dedicated prosecutor in the Nigerian police force, a man who spent years upholding the law in magistrate courts. His colleagues spoke of him with admiration, describing him as a focused, principled, and relentless in his pursuit of justice. But at home, he was a husband to Taiwo and a father to 4 children. To outsiders, they seemed like a regular family, but behind closed doors, trouble had been brewing for a long time. The cracks in their marriage deepened when Mr. Caleb began to suspect that Taiwo, his wife, was being unfaithful in their marriage, and he was damn sure she was cheating on him. As a police officer, he knew how to investigate, so he watched her closely, monitored her every move, and patiently gathered evidence. And then, one fateful evening, his worst fears were confirmed. He caught her red-handed with another man in a hotel. The rage that consumed him was indescribable. In a fit of anger, he arrested the wife's lover and took him to the police station, believing justice would be served. But instead of support, his colleagues told him to release the man and handle the matter within his home. They told him to focus on his wife and not the man. It was a big pill for him to swallow, but he complied. Yet, the damage was already done. The trust that once held that marriage together was shattered beyond repair. Resentment festered between husband and wife, and their home became a battlefield. Arguments replaced laughter. Tension replaced peace. It was only a matter of time before things went out of control. Then came that tragic Tuesday morning. No one knows exactly what triggered the final confrontation, but investigations revealed that the night before, Taiwo had allegedly laced her husband's dinner with a drug meant to weaken him. Perhaps she had a plan. She thought she would finally free herself from the suffocating weight of their broken marriage. But Caleb was not an ordinary man. Even in his weakened state, his instincts kicked in. When she attacked him in his vulnerable state, aiming to mutilate him, he fought back with all the strength he had left. Grabbing a cutlass, he struck her in self-defense. The fight was brutal, fueled by years of anger, pain, and betrayal. By the time the struggle ended, both of them lay lifeless in a pool of blood. A home that had once been filled with love, with the laughter of children, was now reduced to silence and horror. The real victims of this tragedy are the 4 innocent children. They had no say in the conflicts of their parents, yet they were left behind to carry the weight of that dreadful night. One of them, a young boy, later recounted what happened with trembling lips and tears-filled eyes. He spoke of how he and his siblings had to watch their parents destroy each other. The image of that night would haunt them forever. This story reminds us of how fragile love and trust can be. It reminds us that some battles are not worth fighting for. And sometimes the only way to win is to walk away. Now a family that once shared meals and laughter had been torn apart by violence. Let me know what you think in the comment section about this crime. And not forget to like, share this video for more awareness. And of course, do well to subscribe if you've not done that before. Until then, stay safe.